Welcome to Modemulator Instructional video number 3. This video will explain how to enable and use the Modemulator's dial security features to prevent unauthorized connections to a modemulator. The topics covered in this video are an overview of the Modemulator's dial security features, then how to enable and use caller ID screening, how to enable and use password prompting, and how to enable and use Dialback security. In a modemulator data communications system, the user or application at one end uses a modemulator to originate a connection across the cellular network and through the modemulator at the answering end to the remote equipment or answering application. The user or application starts by sending a dial command to the originating modemulator. When any type of dial security is enabled, the answering modemulator will determine if a connection from the originator is authorized. If the connection is not authorized, the connection will not complete. If the connection is authorized, the connection will complete. To use any available form of dial security, the answering modemulator must be configured before it's installed by connecting a terminal to the modemulator's terminal port and sending various configuration commands. In some cases, the originating modemulator must also be configured before it's installed. Part 1 of this video will explain how caller ID screening works and how to enable it. The user or application at the originating end wants to use a modemulator to originate a connection to the answering end. The user or application starts by sending a dial command to the originating modemulator. With caller ID screening enabled, the originating modemulator sends its pre-programmed caller ID number to the answering modemulator. The answering modemulator will search for a matching number in its dialing directory. If a match is not found, the connection will not be allowed. If a match is found, the answering modemulator will answer and the modemulators will connect. To enable caller ID screening, first connect a terminal to the originating modemulator. Use the brace I command to enter a caller ID number into the originating modemulator. This is the number that the modemulator will use to identify itself to the answering modemulator. The caller ID number may be up to 23 numeric digits. Any number can be used, but if the modemulator is replacing a dial-up modem, it is suggested to use the former phone number of the dial-up modem. Then use the brace C1 command to enable caller ID screening in the originating modemulator, followed by an &W command to make the current settings non-volatile. Next, connect the terminal to the answering modemulator. Use the brace Y command to put an entry into the dialing directory of the answering modemulator. The phone number must match the caller ID number that was entered into the originating modemulator. For more details about using the brace Y command, watch Modemulator Instructional video number 2. Then use the brace C1 command to enable caller ID screening in the answering modemulator, followed by an &W command to make the current settings non-volatile. This is a good time to choose whether the answering modemulator will answer manually or use auto answer. Watch Modemulator Instructional video number 1 for help choosing auto answer or manual answer. Now that the originating modemulator and the answering modemulator are configured for caller ID screening, both modemulators can be installed into the application. Part 2 of this video will explain how password prompting works and how to enable it. The user or application at the originating end wants to use a modemulator to originate a connection to the answering end. The user or application starts by sending a dial command to the originating modemulator. With password prompting enabled, the answering modemulator answers, either manually or using auto answer, but only the originating modemulator reports the connection. The answering modemulator then sends a password prompt across the network and through the originating modemulator to the user or application at the originating end. The user or application at the originating end must then send a password to the answering modemulator. The answering modemulator will compare the password to its list of valid passwords. If the password is not valid, the connection will not be allowed. If a password match is found, the connection will complete. To enable password prompting, connect a terminal to the answering modemulator. Use the brace S0 command to enter an administrator password into the answering modemulator. The password may contain up to 15 displayable characters with no spaces. The password is case sensitive. In addition to the administrator password, the modemulator supports up to 9 user passwords. If the application requires other users, use the brace S1 through brace S9 commands to enter user passwords 1 through 9. Each user may be granted administrator privileges with the brace P command. Use the brace S command to display all passwords and privileges onto the terminal screen. This is a good time to choose whether the answering modemulator will answer manually or use auto answer. Watch Modemulator Instructional video number 1 for help choosing auto answer or manual answer. Now that the answering modemulator is configured for password prompting, both modemulators can be installed into the application. Part 3 of this video will explain how Dialback security works and how to enable it. The user or application at the originating end wants to use a modemulator to originate a connection to the answering end. The user or application starts by sending a dial command to the originating modemulator. With Dialback security enabled, the answering modemulator answers, either manually or using auto answer, but only the originating modemulator reports the connection. The answering modemulator then sends a dialback prompt across the network and through the originating modemulator to the user or application at the originating end. The user or application at the originating end must then send a dialback number to the answering modemulator. This dialback number should match an entry in the answering modemulator's dialing directory that holds the IP address of the originating modemulator. The answering modemulator will then disconnect both ends and search for a matching number in its dialing directory. If a match is not found, both ends will remain disconnected. If a match is found, the answering modemulator will dial the dialback number. Assuming that the dialback number routes to the originating modemulator, the originating modemulator must answer, either manually or using auto answer, to complete the connection. To enable Dialback security, first connect a terminal to the answering modemulator. Use the brace S0 command to enter an administrator password into the answering modemulator. The password may contain up to 15 displayable characters with no spaces. The password is case sensitive. Use the brace S command to display all passwords and privileges onto the terminal screen. Then use the brace D1 command to enable Dialback security in the answering modemulator, followed by an &W command to make the current settings non-volatile. Now choose whether the answering modemulator will answer manually or use auto answer. Watch Modemulator Instructional video number 1 for help choosing auto answer or manual answer. Next, connect the terminal to the originating modemulator and configure the originating modemulator for auto answer or manual answer. Now that the answering modemulator is configured for Dialback security and the originating modemulator is configured to answer the dialback, both modemulators can be installed into the application. In this video, I've explained that the modemulator offers 3 types of dial security. First, caller ID screening. which requires that a caller ID number is programmed into the originating modemulator, and that the answering modemulator's dialing directory has an entry that matches the originating modemulator's caller ID number, and that caller ID screening is enabled in both the originating modemulator and the answering modemulator. In order to connect, the caller ID number sent by the originating modemulator must be found in the dialing directory of the answering modemulator. Next, I explained password prompting, which requires that password prompting is enabled in the answering modemulator, which is done by entering an administrator password, and that up to 9 additional user passwords can be entered. In order to connect, the password sent by the originating user or application must be found in the password list of the answering modemulator. Last, I explained Dialback security, which requires that an administrator password is entered into the answering modemulator, and that Dialback security is enabled in the answering modemulator, and that the answering modemulator's dialing directory has an entry that matches the originating modemulator's phone number and IP address. In order to connect, the dialback number sent by the originating user or application must be found in the dialing directory of the answering modemulator, and the originating modemulator must answer the dialback call. For more details about any modemulator commands, see the Command Reference chapter in the Modemulator User Guide, which can be downloaded from these USR support pages. I hope this video was helpful for understanding how to enable and use all 3 types of dial security. Thank you for watching, and thank you for choosing USR.